What is going on, you guys? It is your boy Perry back with another edition of Perry's Points, my weekly Wednesday show starting around 1:30 p.m. Pacific, California time or standard time, whatever you want to call it. Obviously, you guys, it's been a pretty busy week from the last time I did the show up until this week. There's been all kinds of Niner news that's been going on with the team, from free agent signings to more quarterback rumors to rumored players joining the team to just everything going on with the team. And I'm really excited to be back talking about the 49ers once again. And let's kind of get into it, guys. Obviously, this is Perry's Points. Your boy Perry. Follow me on Twitter at Anthony RM Perry. That's ANTHONY RM Perry. And again, we're here to talk all things 49ers football. So on Perry's Points today, you guys, we are going to talk about free agent signings with the Niners, the quarterback situation, future of the offensive line, wide receiver expectations, defensive line expectations, and just kind of going to close it out with some draft thoughts. So let's get underway, you guys. We are going to start with the free agents. Obviously, the 49ers have been really busy at going about just bringing back free agents of all sorts. And really, it's been a lot about bringing back the local guys, the guys that kind of really sustained that Super Bowl run outside Trent Williams, even though he wasn't with the team in 2019. We've seen a lot of familiar faces coming back with the team. Overall, this includes Emmanuel Moseley, Kyle Juszczyk, Jason Verrett. Trent Williams, obviously. They re-signed DJ Jones. They re-signed Dante Johnson, Jaquiski Tartt, Jordan Willis, K'Waun Williams. They tendered Jeff Wilson Jr., and they tendered Daniel Brunskill, and I'm sure there's a couple other players I'm missing as well. But the bottom line here, you guys, is that the 49ers front office, John Lynch, Kyle Shanahan, Parag Marate, and I'm sure to an extent, DeMeco Ryans, the new 49ers defensive coordinator, has not been afraid to bring back all of the familiar faces that really what built the structure of the team up, really the foundation. And I'm looking at guys like K'Waun Williams, Jaquiski Tartt, those two guys who have been with the team for a really long time. Obviously, they've kind of suffered some injuries here and there, nothing major, but they are prone to injuries on occasion. But when you look at them healthy, when you look at them when they are playing and ready to go, they are absolutely kick-ass players, and it's nice to have them back. They were a really big piece of the defense, both of them, if you will. K'Waun Williams, one of the best slot cornerbacks in the NFL, in my opinion. Jaquiski Tartt, although he's not really considered one of the better safeties in the league, let alone top 5, top 10, you don't really hear his name come up in those kind of conversations. But to us, to the local fans who really watch the game and to really understand what's going on with Jaquiski Tartt, we realize that Jaquiski Tartt is a really important piece to the 49ers defense, especially at the safety position. And having him paired alongside Jimmy Ward is going to be very, very vital to really just ensure the secondary success. Obviously, we lost Ahkello Witherspoon, but the team wasn't afraid to bring back Jason Verrett as well, on top of K'Waun Williams, on top of Dante Johnson, who, although isn't a starter, is, I think, a pretty decent depth piece who – you're not going to expect him to be a world beater by any means, but you are going to expect him to just go out and get the job done. And that's kind of what Dante Johnson has been his entire career with the Niners. Is he's not going to go and make a flashy play. He's not going to really wow you with anything, but he is going to get the job done in the backup role, not the starting role. But overall, man, I would say it's been a pretty quiet free agency period for the Niners. And I know they've been doing a lot of re-signings and stuff. And what I mean by quiet is that they haven't really done anything too splashy. They haven't really done the big moves that you, or at least some people, were hoping for them to go after. And I mean, like, going after guys like Kenny Golladay or Adoree Jackson, for example, a guy who recently got cut, just got signed by the New York Giants, kind of players of that nature, really the high name, the big time free agents. And I guess you can consider Trent Williams, even though he did hit the free agency market and had visits with some teams and was really close to signing with the Chiefs. I can't get over that. The Chiefs got really close to signing Trent Williams from what all the reports say, but to no avail. The Niners got Trent Williams back. I think he's one of the most important pieces of the offensive line. And then we look at the free agents that the Niners have brought in that aren't familiar faces, and this includes Samson Ebukam. I think he's going to be a pretty decent free agency piece off the edge. I think he can go out and get the job done. He's not an every down defensive end. He's a guy that will most likely pass rush on third down specifically, or maybe you'll see him on second down on occasion if the team thinks there's going to be a pass play, maybe off play action. But if Samson Ebukam has all the tangibles that they believe he has, and if Nick Bosa is healthy and really the entire defensive line stays healthy, I think we can expect some pretty good productivity off the edge from Samson Ebukam. Look at his stats. He's not necessarily the big world beater that a lot of people really would expect out of a defensive end. And I mean, I think when healthy, a lot of people were kind of spoiled by Dee Ford, including me. I think we all know what Dee Ford's potential is, but even with the restructure, it's hard to bank on Dee Ford really making a solid comeback going into next season. And I know a lot of reports have been saying that Dee Ford is ready to go. Dee Ford believes he'll be ready by the time the season starts, but I can't put all of my money into that basket. I really think that Dee Ford's health is going to be a major concern. If he's healthy, then I stand corrected. I think if he can survive even half this season and not suffer any major injuries, if the Niners can just get him to play third downs, even if it's just 10 to 15 snaps a game, if he can stay healthy and they can maintain his health, I think Dee Ford's presence will be known off the edge. Ebukam in that case will probably be relegated to just a rotational defensive end position where him and Dee Ford will really just be taking the majority of the snaps. But in any event, it's a lot to go on with the defensive line, but kind of seeing what the Niners have done so far, they have really been focused on just addressing depth at defensive line and offensive line, I'd say. They've really been trying to put all their cards in, or really put all their eggs in both baskets. And I mean, on top of re-signing DJ Jones and Jordan Willis and restructuring Dee Ford to ensure he can really stay on the team, the Niners have also gone after former Panthers defensive tackle Zach Kerr. And I mean, Zach Kerr is an absolute monster, you guys. He measures in at 6'2", 334 pounds. If you guys have seen his highlight videos, or let alone just have watched him play for the Panthers, this guy is an absolute monster. He's a beast. And I mean, he's a good rotational defensive lineman. I wouldn't say that he's a starter, but he will definitely be getting at least 40 to 50% of the snaps alongside DJ Jones and Javon Kinlaw. I think those three they'll really be the three-headed monster that's going to spear the interior defensive line. And my starters in base are likely, if you want, probably Bosa, AA on the inside, Kinlaw, and maybe if Zach Kerr can play end a little, I think he could do that as well. But overall, they have really focused on rebuilding that defensive line. And obviously the team lost Solomon Thomas. I know that's not really a big loss, but still having one of those guys come off the bench and be a key rotational guy, it's significant, even if you look at the fine lines of everything. But they've been able to retool the defensive line, ensure Dee Ford stays, getting Zach Kerr, keeping DJ Jones, re-signing Jordan Willis. I think the Niners are once again going to really focus on the depth at defensive line. That's going to be a really big key going forward, and I wouldn't be surprised if they address defensive line in the draft as well. What's up, Jazzy? What do you rate our offseason? I think I got to give them just a solid A, and I'm not going to be really picking, say, A- or A+, but I think if you look at how important it is to retain your key pieces, and some people on Twitter have been saying that, well, the pieces they've been retaining are the reason why they're going to go 6-10 again, or the reason why that this team can't get over the hump. Well, if you look at injuries aside, when all these guys are healthy, the 49ers are a playoff team. That's the bottom line. You can criticize Jimmy Garoppolo all you want. You can really put any quarterback under center. I still think the 49ers are a playoff team regardless. And really, last season proved that the 49ers need to stay healthy. That's the bottom line, is that they need to stay healthy. And we saw a lot of games last season where the games came down to one possession or one measly turnover or two. And a lot of that you can blame on the quarterbacks, such as Nick Mullins, Jimmy Garoppolo to an extent, and CJ Beathard when he played. Overall, having that consistency at quarterback is going to be key, and just the entire team being healthy as a whole. When you lose Nick Bosa, when you lose Solomon Thomas, when you don't have DeForest Buckner going into the season, and really the main defensive line piece is Eric Armstead and Javon Kinlaw, it's hard to maintain that success. And it's the fact that the team was even able to still be a very good defensive team, even with all the injuries on offense, even with all the turnovers sustained on offense that put the defense in terrible positions. The defense was still really good. And that's a testament to Robert Saleh, and that's a testament to those guys on the defense as a whole. Do you think we try to upgrade our wide receiver group? From Kevin King. I hope this isn't the defensive back, Kevin King. We're watching out for you, man. Nah, I'm actually going to talk about that later on in the show, but just to touch on it right now, I think the 49ers should look at upgrading the wide receiver room. Deebo Samuel, when healthy, is one of the most physically imposing wide receivers in the league. I think he's a faster version of Anquan Boldin when Boldin was in his prime. They definitely utilize Deebo a lot differently than Boldin, obviously. I mean, you see a lot of people say that Deebo is an extension of the running game. And I mean, if you want to criticize a wide receiver in that sense, like some people like to do, then so be it. But overall, Deebo Samuel is really good. Brandon Ayuk, obviously. Ayuk is another just star wide receiver in the making. I think he's going to be one of the better guys in the league. And if he can stay healthy as well, if really the presence at quarterback can just be consistent. If they have a nice quarterback, whether it's Garoppolo, whether it's Watson, whether it's Minshew, whether it's a draft guy, whoever it may be, if they can just get a consistent presence at quarterback, we will see the offense reach top 15 numbers. And I really believe that with any quarterback. That's kind of just how confident I am in Shanahan and really how confident I am in what he can do with any quarterback. Jimmy really just needs more confidence. Yeah, I agree, Jazzy. And look, I'm not going to go on the record and say that I'm a Jimmy Garoppolo hater. I'm also not necessarily a supporter. I'm kind of on the fence of, well, if Jimmy Garoppolo can stay healthy, if he can go out there and ball out and play and not get hurt and just find that rhythm that he did in 2019, I think that 49ers will be a playoff team. And that's just kind of the record for them. I mean, health was a main concern going into last season. And look what happened. There's so many injuries in the first few weeks of the season, and just the entire thing tanked from there. And it's hard to really bank on a guy, let alone half the team staying healthy. And here's the only kind of critique I have of the 49ers offseason so far is that a lot of the guys they are bringing back, their former guys, are very injury prone. K'Waun Williams hasn't missed a majority of time. He hasn't missed a lot of time, but we saw last season he suffered a lot of nagging ankle injuries that kind of knocked him out for a game here and there. Jaquiski Tartt has missed a decent amount of time, and it's really just bringing back these guys. DJ Jones is another example. Bringing back these guys that just can't maintain their own health for at least 7 or 8 games consistently. And I know it's the NFL, it's football, it's hard to stay healthy, but when that presence of not being healthy is there, it really cripples a team, and not being able to just build any type of consistent rhythm is going to just destroy teams. And we saw that happen last year. All right. I'm glad you're not the real Kevin King. I believe you. Do you think Deebo has to lose some weight to stay healthy? Yeah, I'd say so. Matt, who does the 49ers Weekly Show with Zach, Niners News, he has been a pretty decent proponent of ensuring that Deebo Samuel cuts down on the weight and cuts down on just, getting overweight to begin with. And it's kind of crazy to think about NFL players being overweight, because these guys are just consistently dynamically and physically imposing as human beings. But when you look at Deebo Samuel, when you look at the lack of conditioning, and that's something Matt said too, it's the lack of being on top of conditioning can really hurt your weight, and it will reflect on the field, and it will reflect physically and mentally. Deebo Samuel just could not stay healthy last season. I think his rookie year, he couldn't stay healthy every now and then as well. So staying on top of conditioning, I think, is key for Deebo Samuel. You can say the same thing about any player as well. So long as they're on top of conditioning and just really ensuring that they maintain their routine and doing what they're supposed to do, I think the team will be okay. I think we'll expect them to really compete once again. But let's see, Ace Daddy. How you doing, Ace? Nice talking to you, my man. Everyone here, thank you for joining. Perry's Points, Wednesday weekly show. It's really exciting to get my voice back out there, just talk all things Niners. Kind of started last week at the right time with the offseason going on, but it's really exciting. I'm glad I can be here with you guys. All right, Ace. If all quarterbacks are gone, Niners draft DB at 12, JC Horn. Yeah, I don't know. Here's the thing, you guys. I really don't know what I want the team to do if they don't take a quarterback in the first round. I think the team doesn't have any major holes on the roster. And really the only major hole you can argue is quarterback, and that's only because Jimmy Garoppolo cannot stay healthy. If he can stay healthy, we aren't even talking about quarterbacks at all. Even with his deficiencies as a quarterback, the way he plays, the way he throws the ball, his mechanics, things of that nature, you can kind of work around that, and Kyle Shanahan proved he could work around that. But going into the whole class as a whole, I don't know. I really don't know what I want the Niners to do. Let me know what you guys think the Niners will do in the first round if they don't take a quarterback. And it's hard for me to formulate an opinion. off the first round alone. I think J.C. Horn would be a solid draft prospect. I think he would be an amazing cornerback to add opposite Jason Verrett. Emmanuel Moseley would probably be the nickel slot corner on third down and nickel if K1 isn't on the field. Moseley kind of be that third cornerback, but in any event, J.C. Horn would instantly step in as cornerback too over Emmanuel Moseley, I think, assuming that OTAs and training camp and preseason goes well, if they play a preseason. But outside of the first round, it's tough. They could do cornerback. They could arguably do offensive tackle, offensive line in general, if they don't think Mike McGlinchey is the guy. I think they have May 3rd, I think, is the day to pick up Mike McGlinchey's option if they haven't already. I could be mistaken on that. But the point being is that I could totally see them addressing offensive line. I could, sadly, see them addressing defensive line as well. That would be, Niner for life, get an edge rusher. See, that's the thing is that I think they brought on Ebukam in hopes that he could really grow into the guy Dee Ford was. And I don't want to say Ebukam has the potential to be Dee Ford. He definitely has the physical ability to be Dee Ford. I mean, Ebukam is fast off the edge. He's strong. He's physical. He just has some things to work on. And that's kind of the reason why he's a third down defensive end, just to rush the passer, because he's not too strong against the run. Against the pass, though, different story entirely. Kevin, Kyle Pitts. Okay, see, again, here's the first thing I was talking about. The team could go in any direction if they decide not to take quarterback. If I'm Kyle Shanahan and you see that the team is bringing back all their key defensive players, and you look at this draft class as a whole, there's a lot of cornerback and secondary depth going into the second, third, and fourth rounds, where I think the Niners could possibly do that if they decide not to take a corner in the first. And if they do decide to go offense in the first round, I'm not going to lie. I think I would much rather have Kyle Pitts than an offensive lineman. And it's bold. It's a really bold thing to say, but I'm not too sure about how I feel about that just yet. But I will say that I think getting Kyle Pitts would be an insane addition. I think, for one, this is something that I think a lot of people haven't really discussed in the offseason and why this type of draft pick would make sense. I think you get Kyle Pitts if you think that your offensive playmakers cannot stay healthy. Brandon Ayuk proved he can stay healthy. I think he missed a few games with COVID, and that was really it. But you look at all the other offensive playmakers, and at least the ones that are on the roster. George Kittle, I love Kittle, but he's suffered some very annoying injuries that have knocked him out for some games, and it's tough to bank on his health. Deebo Samuel, we were talking about it earlier. That's another guy that's really hard to bank on him being healthy as well. The entire running game, Raheem Mostert, Jeff Wilson Jr., whoever the third running back is going to be, JaMychal Hasty, none of the offensive playmakers have proven that they can consistently stay healthy outside of Brandon Ayuk. And I can't even bank on Brandon Ayuk being healthy because he only missed games because of COVID. But when he did play, he was on the field and he never really got knocked out. So, Kevin, I think Kyle Pitts is the pick if they want, here's the thing, too. Last point right here. Jimmy Garoppolo is a great quarterback. Don't get me wrong. He's not top 10, but he can go and get the job done. When you give him offensive playmakers that aren't exactly up to a solid level, and you look at Kendrick Bourne, Deebo Samuel, George Kittle, the running backs, all very solid players in my opinion, but you take those guys away. You leave Jimmy Garoppolo with no offense to him, Trent Taylor. You leave him with a Dante Pettis, I like Kendrick Bourne, but even Kendrick Bourne to an extent. You leave Jimmy Garoppolo with all these kind of subpar offensive playmakers, it's going to be a big struggle moving forward. And we saw that alone when George Kittle was gone in 2019. The run game took a tumble. You had to rely on Garoppolo more, and Garoppolo got the job done. But I would say that was more of Shanahan just really dialing as much as he possibly could open. So get Kyle Pitts if you think the offensive guys can't stay healthy and you need an offensive boost. And I'm not complaining about Kyle one bit. What's going on, Dre? We need cornerback and safety. Everybody is back on one-year deals. So here's another thing. I think that's a really good point as well. Everyone's back on one-year deals. I'm talking DJ Jones, K'Waun Williams, Hart. Where'd my list go right here? A bunch of guys. Dante Johnson, for example. I think Zach Kerr is on a one-year deal. A lot of guys going on one-year deals, and it kind of makes me think of their kind of, what was the Michael Jordan documentary? The Last Dance. It's not necessarily where they're all getting older and this is the end of the road, but in a sense, you look at one-year deals, this is kind of the group's last dance in the sense. I mean, Tart, one-year deal, K'Waun, one-year deal. I don't necessarily think they'll be back next season, and not this coming season, but the one after. And that's only because you have mega deals coming to guys like Fred Warner, Nick Bosa. Deebo Samuel will get a decent amount of money, I would say, even if he can't stay healthy. I still think he will get a good amount. It's tough. It's really tough to kind of decipher on how you can judge these 1-year deals. But Dre, I think I'd see that's another thing I agree with you. I think we do need cornerback and safety. At the least, we need depth. We saw the team sign Tavon Wilson to be the strong safety behind Jaquiski Tartt, and Tavon Wilson will mostly be a special teams guy. But when he's on the field, he kind of reminds me of Dante Johnson in the sense that, yeah, he'll probably go and mess up a play or two, but he'll also go out and just simply get the job done. And that's kind of what this team has proven that they could really bank their success off of is depth guys going out there and getting the job done. And we see that with all the guys right now. It's a little different because the guys are getting older. They are on 1-year deals, and we don't necessarily know what to make of the team's depth as of right now. I do think they're addressing the right pieces. If you don't look at the guys that are starters, so if you don't look at Jaquiski Tartt, K'Waun Williams, Trent Williams, for example, I guess you can say, who else did they bring back? Jason Verrett. If you don't look at the guys that are starters, you look at the guys that are backups or the depth pieces, you look at the Dante Johnsons, you arguably look at Emmanuel Mosley if they don't address corner. Those kind of guys, Zach Kerr, DJ Jones, it kind of proves that they're going to bank on them being healthy and that depth being key once again. That 2019 run to us really proved that depth is vital. Depth is important to a good playoff run. And I think that when you look at cornerback and safety, I think that is a very underrated position to address in the back half of the depth chart and maybe arguably in the starting positions as a whole. And I'm not going to go out and say that Jason Verrett is going to play another 16 games. It's a huge, huge risk to bank on Verrett being healthy. And you can say same thing about K'Waun Williams as well. So this is where depth comes into play. Cornerback and safety both. I think those are two positions the Niners will likely address in the middle rounds. I'm leaning, if they don't go quarterback, I think I'm leaning offensive playmaker or just an offensive piece in the first round. But there's a lot of talent in the first round at cornerback and safety as well. So the team could really do anything possible to go about those positions. But moving on, guys, I kind of want to talk about the quarterback situation for a little bit, and I don't want to touch on the Watson stuff. That is really just too much to go around right now. All I know is that people put out statements, they're saying things, whatever's going to happen, happens. That's pretty much it. But I really want to talk about quarterbacks, you guys. And to begin, we're going to add another quarterback to the rumor mill. Another quarterback that's been added is Gardner Minshew. There's been a lot of reports on social media saying that the Niners, and this was from ESPN's Jeremy Fowler, there's been a lot of noise or rumbles that the Niners are going to make some kind of big move at quarterback. And if the Niners are going to go after Minshew Mania, Gardner Minshew, I think I wouldn't necessarily consider that a big move. I guess if you can look at them from Electricity. How you doing, my man? How's it going? If you look at Gardner Minshew, I think he's a very good backup. People look at like the win-loss. That's the problem with analyzing quarterback play. Rich Madrid will say that all the time on social media is that don't look at the win-loss. A lot of people will say don't look at the win-loss. What's going on, pod? How you guys doing? Nice to be talking 49ers, talking quarterbacks right now, kind of like the Minshew mania train that's going to happen in San Francisco, apparently. What do you think Minshew is worth, a fourth rounder? Here's the thing is that a lot of people on social media have been saying that, oh, you can get him for a day 2 or day 3 pick. You can get him for a 5th or a 6th or a 4th at most. Now, here's the thing is that if any of you guys have played Madden, you will know that trading for a quarterback, if you want to trade for your favorite player, it always costs a lot of capital in franchise mode. Now, if you look at the quarterback position in real life, look at what Matthew Stafford went for example. The Rams traded for him for 2 to 3 first-round picks, if I'm not mistaken. Carson Wentz went for a 2nd and a 4th, I think, but that 2nd is a conditional 1st. You look at that and you look at what quarterbacks are going for, you realize that the quarterback position is severely overvalued. And I get it's a quarterback, I guess the main guy. But what I'm trying to say is that teams are willingly and naturally going to, Madden costed Kittle. Quarterbacks are going to naturally cost a lot of capital, regardless of who it is. We saw a lot of rumbling saying Sam Darnold was going to go to the Niners for a 2nd-round pick. That is really expensive if you look at Sam Darnold and the outlying factors behind him. Gardner, quarterback one, he has good stats playing for the Trash Can Jags. Yeah, see, that's the thing is that I think if you take away Gardner's like garbage time stats and really look at how he played, who he played with, his roster, things of that nature, I thought Gardner was really good. Now, quarterback one, oof. So here's the thing, Dre. I think now this might be a little bold, you guys, but hear me out for a second. I think Gardner Minshew could definitely be quarterback one on this team. And I'm not trying to be bold. I'm not trying to be witty. That's my honest opinion. I think Gardner could be quarterback one. Do I think the team should go that route? No, absolutely not. I'm not on that train. But I think Minshew could be the guy. I think Minshew could go out there and absolutely play very well. It's crazy to think about, but you look at the quarterbacks that have been in Shanahan's system throughout his time. Any quarterback, Robert Griffin, Kirk Cousins, Johnny Manziel, Matt Schaub, Jimmy Garoppolo, Nick Mullins, CJ Beathard, Brian Hoyer. He has been able to get the job done with a bevy of quarterbacks at his disposal. And who's to say that he couldn't get the job done with Gardner Minshew as well? Minshew put up solid numbers while playing for a bad team, 37 TDs, 11 INTs. So it's not bad. His numbers aren't bad at all. It's like, I think you can look at Minshew as like kind of like a poor man's Jimmy in the sense that he will have really skeptical throws. He doesn't have the good arm strength. He isn't afraid to throw it though. That's the difference between him and Jimmy is that Gardner Minshew is not afraid to just go out there and sling the ball. And I think when we're looking for quarterbacks, I think those are the kind of guys the team should be looking for as a whole. I don't want to go after or try to keep Jimmy Garoppolo on if it means he's going to be a timid thrower. And this is where the analysis really sucks about Garoppolo is that before the ACL injury, he was a confident thrower. Jimmy Garoppolo was just slinging left and right. And I don't care if it was a short 5-game sample. You just have to watch how he played. Garbage time or not, garbage teams or not, watch how he played. He was running left and right. He was making plays on his feet, something that he has not really been able to do since the ACL injury. So it's tough to analyze. I think Shanahan should be looking for a quarterback that could move and not move like Trey Lance or Lamar Jackson, but I mean a guy who can really just get out of the pocket on play action boot rolls and really just extend plays with his feet if he need be. Yeah, I'll tell him. I'll definitely tell him. One BLZ, no way. Quarterback two until he proves it when JG gets hurt. See, that's another fair analysis as well I'm assuming about Gardner Minshew, one BLZ. I think that Minshew in this offense with Shanahan could be a good starting quarterback. But if you compare him to Jimmy, I would not want Minshew starting over Jimmy Garoppolo. That's kind of just the thing. I think Minshew has a lot of potential. I think he'd be a solid quarterback, just like Jimmy is when he's healthy in this system. But I wouldn't prefer Minshew over Garoppolo. Someone said here, Nick Mullins is a poor man's Minshew. I think, man, I don't know. I really don't know. I think both their decision-making processes are kind of bad. The only difference is that Minshew isn't afraid to throw the ball, and Minshew doesn't really lose confidence like Nick Mullins does. And we've seen him lose confidence really bad. I'd rather take the chance on Rosen than Minshew. I don't know, Pod. I really don't know. I think Rosen, is on a team. He will compete for a roster spot. I don't think Rosen will be the guy. I highly doubt that. At the time Rosen got brought onto the team, I think a lot of people bought onto the hype that Rosen could possibly be the guy. And this takes me back to the whole point, guys, where you really have to value Kyle Shanahan, value what he does for the offense, and look what he does with his offensive playmakers. A lot of people at one point during the offseason were just crapping on Kyle Shanahan for his win-loss record at the team. And what's his win-loss? I think 17-22 with the team or something like that. Some not so good number as a head coach. But look, it's all the injuries. It's everything that's been going on with the team that has really hurt Kyle Shanahan's case to be a, quote, good head coach in the national media. Excuse me. And I think there's a lot of things you can look at. And for example, it's like, look at the betting odds on Vegas on Sportsbook. The 49ers have the fourth best odds of making the Super Bowl. That is absolutely absurd if you think about it. And make of it what you will, but the bottom line is that when Vegas has a lot of money on a certain team or just a certain direction of a team, it tells you all you need to know about what people believe in that team to begin with. And that it starts at quarterback, though. It really starts at quarterback. I think Vegas and a lot of us are really banking on the team going to address the quarterback position, and they could do that with whatever it may be. All right, a couple more thoughts on quarterback because we've been talking quarterback for a long time. Alec, Minshew evades pressure really well, too, and he's a very smart guy. He needs time to develop. Yeah, that's the thing is I think I think we know what Gardner Minshew is as a quarterback for the people that have watched him. I think he's a guy who has minus arm strength, minus decision making, plus maneuverability inside and out of the pocket. He has proven that he can go out and extend plays. The arm strength is definitely a big issue, but if you've seen arm strength been a struggle with guys like Garoppolo and Nick Mullins, you know, in Kyle Shanahan's offense, arm strength doesn't necessarily matter so long as someone can go out there and fit the ball where it needs to be or just not be afraid to throw it deep, like some said quarterbacks. The fact we spend so much time on the backup quarterback is a telling sign that's the time you need. Yeah, Shay, I agree 100% with this. I absolutely agree. That's been the entire conversation the offseason is fix backup quarterback, fix backup quarterback. And it's like, social media has just been a war zone at quarterback. Jimmy Garoppolo stands, Jimmy Garoppolo haters. It's been an entirely big debate. And this is where I stand on Garoppolo, you guys. I'm kind of on the middle with it. I try to be in the middle about Garoppolo. I think the team could use an upgrade, but if they decide to keep Garoppolo and address backup quarterback, it is what it is. I'm not necessarily a Jimmy Garoppolo hater. I'm also not necessarily a fan. I think he's a guy who can go out there and just get the job done like he proved in 2019. We know what he is. We know what he is as a quarterback, and we know his limitations. But he proved that he can go out there and play the quarterback position and operate Kyle Shanahan's offense well. Okay, since we're still talking about quarterbacks, I think I'm going to move on to my last point. I'm not closing the show, just talking about my last point right here, draft thoughts. Quarterback. I guess we got to start with quarterback, you guys. This is the meat, the cream of the crop for quarterbacks. This is a really solid NFL draft class. The backup quarterbacks have been really well or really highly regarded as well. Davis Mills, Kellen Mond, Kyle Trask, even Ian Book, Jamie Newman. But there's a ton of quarterbacks in the mid rounds the 49ers could address. I'm not a fan of Kyle Trask. That kind of goes on the whole Minshew boat, Nick Mullins boat, that I don't think the Niners should be looking for a quarterback with minus arm strength. The Niners shouldn't also be looking for a guy who is a Josh Allen, Justin Herbert, who will just yeet the ball right into where it's supposed to be. But I will say that they should be looking for a quarterback who has plus arm strength. I think Davis Mills offers that. Kellen Mond definitely offers that. Chris Sims on one of his podcasts, I believe, compared Kellen Mond to Ryan Tannehill, and I totally see that out of Mond. I think Mond has plus arm strength. I think he has very plus athleticism, and he's just a winning SEC quarterback. And I'm not going to factor in competition in college. I'm not going to factor in win-loss. I think when you analyze quarterbacks in college, just look at their traits, just look at their tangibles. I think who they go up against should be a factor, don't get me wrong, but that shouldn't be the main factor. If I'm looking at quarterbacks, say Jimmy Garoppolo, for example, and you look at his competition in Eastern Illinois, I will consider that, but I'm also going to consider his traits and his tangibles and who he specifically is as a quarterback. Not his weapons, not the competition, just him. Just the quarterback specifically is what people should be looking at. Ace, would you want Davis Mills as our backup and Rosen at third? Yeah, I think I wouldn't be too minus or too, what's the word? I would be a fan of Davis Mills. I think he's a pretty good quarterback coming out of Stanford. A lot of people have been comparing Davis Mills to Andrew Luck coming out of Stanford. Had Davis Mills stayed one more year, I think that's a little obscene. I think that's a little crazy to say the least, that Davis Mills' ceiling would have been Andrew Luck had he stayed one more year. But Davis Mills, just like Jamie Newman, just like Kellen Mond, very raw prospects that you look at and go, these are guys that I would develop. I would absolutely have them sit behind the bench or sit as a second quarterback and develop. And so, man, you guys are making me move on to points left and right. I absolutely love all these comments. You guys are bringing the love today. Do they trade up for a quarterback? Yeah, I would say so. And I'm going to blend this in with the whole Davis Mills concept as well. Kyle Shanahan, when he was with Washington, the offensive team name at the time, the Washington football team, when he was there, they drafted Robert Griffin in the first round, and they drafted Kirk Cousins, I believe, in the third round. And I think the 49ers are in the same situation right now as it stands. I think that they just need to overhaul the quarterback room entirely. This includes going after Minshew, and it doesn't have to be drafting a guy in the mid-rounds. It just means getting new faces in new places. Mullins is back, if I'm not mistaken, but I don't think Mullins will make the final roster. CJ Beathard just signed with the Jaguars, and it's kind of, It's kind of interesting that CJ Beathard just signed with the Jaguars, and all of a sudden we're seeing the Gardner Minshew links left and right come along with the 49ers. So lots of conspiracy theories going about quarterback, but to the point, Forever Faithful. I didn't even realize I clicked on you guys. Take a listen to the Forever Faithful podcast. Those are my boys, Brandon and Esteban. They go out there. They talk all things 49ers as well. Listen to their podcast on Spotify, on iTunes, everything you can listen to them on. But talking about trading up for a quarterback and trading up for backup quarterbacks, I think the Niners are in a position to address quarterback in the draft twice if it comes down to that. If they don't trade for Minshew, I absolutely expect the 49ers to trade up for a quarterback, whether it's Fields, whether it's Lance, God forbid Mac Jones, and I like Jones, but he's not trade up worthy in my opinion, or Zach Wilson if he somehow falls. The Niners are in a position to address quarterback. That's the bottom line. I think they are in a position to go and address quarterback in the first round. I also think they're in a position to go address it in the mid rounds. That's just kind of the position the team's in. And if Shanahan's past proves that the front office in Washington wanted Robert Griffin, Shanahan wanted Kirk Cousins, which is why he was so high on Kirk Cousins before they got Garoppolo. It tells you that there is a slight small pattern, or at least some thoughts that the 49ers could go out and get quarterback twice in the draft. I think they'll do it. I think they'll possibly do it. I'm not necessarily a fan. I think if they go and get backup quarterback, it shouldn't be an old vet. It should just be someone with experience like Gardner Minshew. Moving through the comments, Jazzy, if we draft Amon-Ra St. Brown, yes. St. Brown, you guys, is okay. This real quick. This is going to be my transition into wide receiver expectations and a mix of draft thoughts. Wide receiver, you guys, we talked about it a lot earlier. Wide receiver is a position I think the 49ers will address. Amon-Ra St. Brown, Rashad Bateman, Tylan Wallace, Terrace Marshall, Jalen Waddell, Kyle Pitts, who can play wide receiver, Jamar Chase, Devontae Smith. The talent goes on and on in this wide receiver class, you guys. It is a stupid thick wide receiver draft class this year, but it's really exciting. I honestly think it's really exciting to say the least. I think if the Niners want to, they will definitely address quarterback. I'm going to Richie Grant. I think he's a safety, right? Niner Media, Richie Grant. Yeah, Jalen Darden, Richie Grant. I think he's a safety if I'm not mistaken. I got to retouch up on my draft prospects. In any event, though, you guys, I think the Niners should 100% address wide receiver in this draft class. It is a very solid wide receiver class through and through. Amon-Ra St. Brown is one of my favorite wide receivers in the class. I think he will ball out wherever he goes. He kind of, and I don't like comparing USC guys to USC guys, but I think St. Brown kind of has that Juju Smith-Schuster in him where he can go out and just absolutely win one-on-one catches. He can play the slot. He can play outside. He can just win. He won't necessarily beat you with his speed, but he is a bona fide deep threat in my opinion. And whoever gets him, hopefully us, whoever gets him, I think will be a very lucky team. But guys, kind of looking at the wide receivers right now, I have the list up. If the Niners were to address wide receiver, I wouldn't be shocked if they trade back into the first round for a wide receiver, although I don't think they will need to do that. I think this is another type of draft class where if it calls for it, if they don't get a cornerback in the second round or safety in the second round, I think the Niners will use one of those third round picks to get a wide receiver. And looking at some wide receivers that could potentially fall in the third round, I like St. Brown. I think he should be a second-round pick, but because of the depth of this draft class, I think Amon Brown will fall into the third round. The Niners don't necessarily have a high third-round pick, but if they get to him, I think Brown will be the guy third round. Nico Collins, another very solid wide receiver out of Michigan, 6'4", big dude, absolutely big dude. Shanahan has kind of proved, though, that he doesn't really want big threats at the receiving positions. Jordan Reed, George Kittle, not necessarily big guys. Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, Kendrick Bourne, all guys that aren't that big. So if I'm looking at my list right now off of the Draft Network, if I'm looking at some of these prospects, guys that aren't necessarily huge, not the 6'3", 6'4" guys, but if I'm looking at guys who kind of would fit Shanahan's mold, if you were to go after guys in the mid rounds, Tylan Wallace out of Oklahoma, Amari Rogers is 5'9.5", but I think he would be a solid threat from Clemson. Chatarius Atwell, Tutu Atwell, Jalen Darden. I think someone said that in the chat. Where are you? Niner Media. Yeah, Jalen Darden, I think, is another guy I think the Niners will be looking for some type of receiver that fits the Kyle Shanahan mold. And if not, here's another thing too. Now that they lost Kendrick Bourne, I think the 49ers will be looking for a slot receiver. If Deebo Samuel can't stay healthy, slot receiver should be the biggest need. Trent Taylor is gone. I don't think Trent Taylor will be coming back. So looking at slot receivers, and if I'm just using the stereotypical slot receiver prototypical size, Jatarius Atwell, Jalen Darden is another guy. Dwayne Eskridge, Elijah Moore, Marquez Stevenson, all these guys could just fit that slot receiver mold, and I think that Niners will address it. Jazzy, will Jalen Hurd coming back? So do you think he'll be a factor? Guys, I want Jalen Hurd to be a factor so bad, but this goes back to the very beginning of this episode, is that it's really hard to bank on guys staying healthy. Jalen Hurd is one of them, you guys. Jalen Hurd is a guy I think that is literally like a taller Deebo Samuel. Like, he's not afraid of contact. He will bowl people over. He will go and run routes, and he can arguably line up anywhere on the offensive, not the offensive line, just out on the field. He can play out wide. He can play slot. He could supposedly play tight end. I don't think we saw that, but he supposedly could. And he could line up as a running back because he was a running back in Tennessee. So Jalen Hurd, man, I can't bank on him being healthy, Jazzy. I want him to. I want to believe in him so bad. Same thing, as Jalen Hurd comes back and plays, it's a bonus now. Absolutely. If they think Jalen Hurd can stay healthy, I think the Niners will still address wide receiver, but I think they'll do it in like the 5th, 6th, or 7th rounds. Kind of one of those waste picks where they could bank on a guy who has low risk, high reward, someone who can go out there and just be a camp body, or someone who has some kind of potential. We got to add to the Yakbos. I agree. I absolutely agree. Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, and here's the thing, that was George Kittle too. I think he's a Yak bro. Here's the thing that's been really frustrating about the offensive playmakers, is that they haven't been unleashed to their full potential. And this is the most frustrating thing about being a 49ers fan, and the most frustrating thing about going about the quarterback debate, is that Jimmy Garoppolo, for example, when he was healthy, had some great numbers, but there were a lot of throws I think he left out on the field that could have been even bigger with guys like Deebo Samuel at the time, and Kendrick Bourne, and every other offensive playmaker that was healthy, Emmanuel Sanders as well. It's quarterbacks that are just missing throws on this team that are really crippling the offense's potential. And we already saw that the Niners, when Garoppolo was healthy, was one of the most efficient offenses in the entire NFL, and I think NFL history as well, if I'm not mistaken. But you still knew Jimmy Garoppolo's limits as a quarterback. Now it's like you got to go out there and find a quarterback who can just make those consistent throws and really not handicap the offense. And that's been the absolute most frustrating thing. But speaking of wide receiver, you guys, let me know what your guys' expectations are out of the wide receivers. So let's assume, we'll play a little game. Let's assume that our guys are going to stay healthy. Jalen Hurd, Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk. I'm going to include George Kittle as well. We're going to play a little game. Let me know in the comments what you guys expect out of the wide receivers this year. Give me some stats. Give me some numbers. Give me anything that you guys are thinking that you will see out of the wide receivers. And I know this is tough because I don't want you guys to include the quarterback position. Just pretend our quarterback is like Garoppolo's potential. It doesn't have to be Garoppolo, but like a Garoppolo type quarterback. Imagine an average quarterback at the quarterback position throwing to our receivers. What do you guys expect out of them? If I'm looking at our wide receivers right now, Brandon Ayuk, Jalen Hurd if he's healthy, Deebo Samuel, Jawan Jennings. I think Jennings will make the roster. That's my early bold take, is I think Jawan Jennings will make the roster as the final guy. Richie James. I think these guys have potential to be, as always, one of the more underrated wide receiver rooms in the NFL. So that's the thing, is that out of our wide receiver room, you're not going to expect a Julio Jones type receiver step up. You're not going to expect DeAndre Hopkins. You're not going to expect those kind of guys having that kind of season. Excuse me. But you will go out there and expect these guys to put up some decent numbers, assuming that they can really get the most out of their quarterbacks. More catches. I don't want as many of those jet sweeps. Yeah, I think that the jet sweep is a really solid concept when used properly, like what Kyle Shanahan does. It's really interesting, to say the least, about how he utilizes the jet sweep. I wanted to see him use that concept more in 2019 with Deebo Samuel. I really wanted him to use that concept in the Super Bowl when the Niners played the Chiefs. No clue why. Zero clue as to why Kyle Shanahan just completely trashed his offensive plan in the second half of the Super Bowl. But, we're on to bigger and better times. I think you look at this season in particular, I think if the Niners don't get what they want out of quarterback, we will see Kyle Shanahan really dig into his playbook to really try and make the offense as divisive as possible. Ace, I like that. Herd if healthy leads the team in touchdown passes. That would be insane. And I think Jalen Hurd would kind of be like Kendrick Bourne, where his stats weren't too gaudy, but he had a lot of touchdowns in the red zone, and he had a lot of touchdowns in clutch time when it mattered. If Jalen Hurd is healthy, you guys, I think he will lead the team in total all-purpose touchdowns. Not return. He's not a returner, but I think he'll line up as a running back. I think if he's healthy, Kyle Shanahan will utilize him to that extent. He'll line up in the slot. He'll line up out wide as the X or the Z. Whatever it may be, Jalen Hurd has the potential to be a beautiful, beautiful offensive piece in this game. He just needs to stay healthy. He just absolutely needs to stay healthy, and that's a lot to bank on. Forever faithful, I say Richie James is a new slot receiver. I think that Richie James is another guy who will make the roster, but it's really tough to see how Kyle Shanahan is going to utilize him. I think Richie James was severely underutilized when all the guys were healthy, when he was on this team. We saw what he did against the Green Bay Packers, and I don't want to hear the excuse that it was because he was the only guy. I don't want to hear the whole concept that Richie James was the only main receiver. And this was when the Niners were rolling out. I think Pettis was still on the roster at the time. I think it was Pettis, even though he didn't get used. Richie James, River Craycraft. They just had no playmakers. And I know Richie James was the guy, but you saw what he did out on the field, and you saw his potential. Richie James should definitely get a shot on the roster. I think if he does, I agree. I think he could be like the dark horse candidate to be the new slot receiver. I'm going to pull up his numbers real quick here, at least just his size. I know Kyle Shanahan doesn't really care about size when it comes to guys playing in his positions. I mean, wide receivers are usually out wide in his offenses, 5'10", 5'11", 6'1". Those are kind of his sized. No, we are not talking about the GOAT Kraft. He's playing time Niner. Go away. Richie James is 5'9". He's a small dude, but he fits the slot. He fits the stereotypical slot position. Richie James should definitely get a shot to be the slot guy. I do think, though, that the Niners should still be looking at addressing wide receiver depth. Losing Trent Taylor, losing Kendrick Bourne, and I'm not going to say Trent Taylor's loss is huge, but when you go out there and when you lose a Trent Taylor, when you lose a Kendrick Bourne, when you lose those guys who fit into the plans of what the Niners wanted to do at wide receiver, it hurts. I'm not going to say it's going to cripple a team, but it forces the team to go out and look for a new guy at wide receiver. Will it be a slot guy? Will it be a slot guy? Will it be another guy who can play the Z position like Kendrick Bourne did? The world may never know up until draft day, but I will say that the team has a lot of potential to go out and find that kind of guy. Jazzy, I don't feel Richie has that swagger yet. He's a quiet dude, I think. Richie James is really a quiet dude. I know he was a bona fide backflip guy in 2019 when the team was out winning games, but he doesn't have that. Yeah, I agree to an extent. He doesn't have that that energy that Debo gives off, that Brandon gives off, that Kendrick Bourne did give off, even Kittle, for example. I think that here's the thing. You look at the team, you look at how they act on the field and off the field. It reflects the coaching staff. It really reflects the personnel on that team. And you look at Kyle Shanahan, who's such a quiet and calm dude, it looks like, but you look at how the players act, it only makes me wonder what Kyle Shanahan is like off the field. It makes me wonder what he's like inside the locker room, inside the film room, talking crap over with the guys. So if these guys have really colorful personalities, that really shows me who Kyle Shanahan is. And I guess what I'm saying is to not really see that out of Richie James, at least when he's out there playing, it's a little weird. I would say it's a little weird, but everyone's different. I'm not going to go out and judge a person for the way they act. It's a little surprising, but hey, Richie James is a baller, I think. When he's healthy, he is absolutely a baller. So let's see. What was a point I neglected to fail at here? Point 3, future of the offensive line. We're going to shift the offensive line a little bit. Right guard is still a position I think the team needs to address in the draft or in free agency if need be. There's a lot of solid offensive line talent this year. Now, if the 49ers address offensive line in the first round, It's another thing, another one of the things. So I'm like, offensive line, just like defensive line, it's not a pretty pick unless it's a defensive end in the top 5, like a Nick Bosa. But if they address offensive line in the draft, I mean, it is what it is. I think offensive line, the team should absolutely be looking to build upon. Kyle Shanahan has kind of proved that he can work around a bad offensive line. At that point, though, it's up to the quarterback to be able to be good with a bad offensive line. And we saw that with Patrick Mahomes, where it's like you have a top 3 quarterback in the league whose offensive line in the Super Bowl was just absolutely atrocious because everyone was hurt. And it's as if those backups hadn't even played a single snap in the NFL. That's how bad they were. Ace Daddy, my man, Brunskill with only reps at guard. He will be solid. Yeah, so I'm not going to rule out Brunskill being a solid player. I think he has the potential to go out there and play right guard and be a dude. So you're looking at, from left to right, Trent Williams, Laken Tomlinson, Alex Mack. One of the most underrated signings I think the team could do is Alex Mack, Daniel Brunskill right guard, and Mike McGlinchey. It's kind of a toss up at right guard and to an extent right tackle, because I don't know if the team really believes in Mike McGlinchey. I think they do. They put in the capital for him. I think they picked up his option. I still don't know. I'm not quite sure. But they believe in McGlinchey. I think he'll play out one more year. But who knows? Maybe they could get a tackle in the mid rounds to sit behind Mike McGlinchey. Niner Media, trade down for Elijah Vera Tucker. My man Stuart, who does our 49ers Hive mock drafts with me, we put we're on version 5.0 of our mock draft, believe it or not. 6.0 will be coming out sometime this week, if not on the weekend. Elijah Vera Tucker is a dude that Stuart, So Locked In on Twitter, follow him at So Locked In altogether. He's a guy that he is really high on. I'm really high on Elijah Vera Tucker as well. He's the top interior defensive line player in this class. I think if he's not there at 12, or if Slater isn't there at 12, I really like Slater also. He can play on the inside. If Slater's not there, I think the team is fully capable of trading back. And if they trade back, I'm going to assume that J.C. Horn is gone. I'm going to assume that Pitts is gone. Any offensive playmaker that they would want is gone. And at that point, I think if you trade back, you should be looking at offensive line or defensive line. But Niner Media, I think Elijah Vera Tucker would be the guy. He is a very good right guard. He could play left guard if he wanted. He could play center if he wanted. He could play anywhere along the line. I think in a trade back, the Niners will take offensive line. And here's the thing. This is what's kind of baffling to me, you guys. And this is what I love about Niners social media, is that not everyone has like I've not to consider myself like that guy, even though I'm about to right now. There's a lot of points that I've really been thinking about that the Niners, or that social media and like all the big figureheads, haven't really talked about. One of those things is trading back in this draft. I've seen it mentioned a few times. I've seen it brought up a few times, but no one has really gone out there and argued that the team should trade back or the team could trade back. I personally think they could trade back if their guy isn't there. And not really banking on them not taking a quarterback. But again, they could take a quarterback if they really believe in them in the mid rounds and try to mold him behind Garoppolo, because they have the money to keep Garoppolo. They're at about $15 million in cap space. So if they go out and sign anyone, it's just going to be a depth signing. But you look at the quarterback position, you look at offensive line, it's going to cost a lot of capital to trade up for Justin Fields or Trey Lance, or if they want Mac Jones, it's going to cost a lot to trade up for Mac Jones. So if they decide not to address quarterback in the draft, if they don't want to pick at pick 12, I think they could try to accumulate more second and third round picks, because it is a very deep draft class in general at wide receiver, at offensive line, at cornerback. If they wanted to do that, I think they could trade back into the first round. Maybe, let me pull up the draft order real quick, you guys. I want to take a look at some real quick. Let's see, NFL Hackathon. Okay. If I am looking at the draft order right now, and I'm just going to presume that a quarterback is there at 12, or maybe like within the top 10 that the Niners don't want, I could totally see teams like New England trading up to the Niners, the Raiders, if they wanted to trade up. Washington is a big factor, team that could trade up to 12 as well. Chicago. The 49ers have a lot of option, you guys, that they could just be trade back partners with another team who's looking to move up for a quarterback or for a key offensive lineman. And if they trade back, I'm a fan of that. I don't mind. I still think the 49ers could get a good prospect later in the mid rounds. So if I'm looking at kind of like a big boards right now, if the Niners wanted to trade back, I think they could arguably get Elijah Vera Tucker. If they wanted a cornerback, I think Patrick Surtain will fall. Caleb Farley has been a guy that's fallen because of that so-called back injury that he's sustained. That it's a micro discectomy, I think it's called. I'm not a doctor. It's some kind of procedure on his back though. And I know NFL teams do not like back injuries whatsoever. I know the 49ers like to draft injured guys. That's the way it is, but it really depends. But in any event, we're looking at trade backs here. Elijah Vera Tucker could be a guy if they trade back into like the late teens. Azeez Ojulari could fall. Jalen Phillips, Jalen Mayfield. Let's see. Terrace Marshall, Zaven Collins. There's a lot of guys the 49ers could absolutely trade back and still get if they think they want to address that position. Offensive line, cornerback, safety, wide receiver to an extent. There's a lot of positions the Niners could address in a trade back, but whatever they decide to do, it's going to, I'm not going to say that it's a big franchise altering move, but to say that if they decide to trade back and not address quarterback, if they believe in Garoppolo, that's going to be a very decisive move, to say the least. Let's see. I'm about closing out the show. You guys got a few more minutes here, kind of reaching that hour mark. A couple more things I want to touch on real quick. Defensive line expectations. So I brought it up earlier about how the Niners had a huge defensive line monster or monstrosity at interior. Let's see. Zach Kerr, DJ Jones, Javon Kinlaw, all dudes who are 6 foot, 6'2", and 6'4", over 320 pounds respectively. And I'm not going to factor in defensive end right now, just looking at the interior. Kinlaw, Jones, Zach Kerr, monsters, absolute monsters at defensive line. And I think the 49ers are looking to rebuild that depth. I think the defensive line this year, if they're healthy, will be one of the better units in the league. I think they will be a top 10 unit. I think it's fair to say they'll be a top 10 unit if Bosa is healthy, if Armstead kind of returns to that 2019 Armstead that we had where I think he got 9.5 sacks or 11.5, some decent number. DJ Jones, Javon Kinlaw, guys who should be looking to take really big steps up. I think they'll have pretty good numbers as well. Zach Kerr was the Panthers' best graded defensive lineman according to PFF. And PFF isn't the Bible, but I will say that that is very telling. Let's see. Ace Daddy, Jones, Givens, Kerr, Kinlaw. Let's go. I agree. Jazzy, he had like 13. I think if you're referring to Armstead's sack totals, let's see. I got the lucky internet right here. Let's take a look at his numbers from last season. Let's go to Pro Football Reference. Let's see. Last season, Eric Armstead had 10 sacks even. 10 sacks, you guys. I think you can credit sacks however you want. 10, 10.5, 11, 13, whatever it may be. Armstead was a double-digit sack guy. If Bosa comes back, if Ebukam turns out to be the guy that people think he could be, if Dee Ford plays, I'm not going to bank on him being healthy. But if Dee Ford can play, wow, this defensive line is going to really be something else. It's a lot to expect out of the defensive line, but I think that if they step up to their 2019 role, and a lot of people will say that, well, losing Buckner was the reason why the defensive line fell apart. I think if the Niners decided to keep Buckner and lose Eric Armstead and have the exact same situation they suffered now with the team, I think we wouldn't have seen anything much different. I think Buckner is a better interior defensive line guy, but Armstead is arguably a better rotational guy at end and at interior as a whole, so Armstead's a lot more flexible. You think we can use Dee Ford and Ebukam, special speed rush? Yeah, Jazzy, I agree. I think that a rotation of Ebukam and Ford will possibly happen if Ford can stay healthy. It's a lot to ask, though. I think it's absolutely a lot to ask for Dee Ford to stay healthy. And here's the thing about the free agent signings so far is that you look at Alex Mack, he hasn't missed that many games. Samson Ebukam, I don't think he's missed a single game in his career. If he has, he's only missed a couple. Looking at Zach Kerr right now, he was never a starter. But looking at the games he's played in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 seasons. He's played in 7 seasons, has averaged about 13 games played in his career, 13 to 14. So you look at the guys that the 49ers are bringing in from free agency, they're looking at guys who can stay healthy. And I think that's the key thing when you guys analyze this free agency process for the 49ers is not only will they be addressing depth guys at this point because they don't have much cap space left, They should likely be looking for guys who have proven they could stay healthy throughout the course of the season. Ebukam, Alex Mack, Zach Kurz played in quite a few games. Compared to guys like K1 and Jaquiski Tartt and DJ Jones, it's hard to bank on guys being healthy as a whole. But I think the process that the Niners should go about this year, outside of bringing back their own guys, is guys who can stay healthy. I don't think they have many more free agency guys that they will bring in. I think if the Niners if they sign someone else in free agency, I think it will be a secondary piece like a cornerback who has proven to stay healthy. Let me see real quick. Casey Hayward, I think, has been healthy. Let's see. I'm going to pull that up real quick. Free agent cornerbacks. Oh, wrong one. Okay. Let's see. Casey Hayward, I think when healthy, is one of the better cornerbacks in the league. AJ Bouye is another guy who would be a solid player. I think he's on suspension right now. But when he's healthy, he is a very solid cornerback. Okay, finally loaded up right here. Let's see. All stats is available. Okay. Sorry, guys. Just stalling. Okay. AJ Bouye, Malcolm Butler, Casey Hayward, Richard Sherman, God forbid, DJ Hayden, Josh Norman. There's all kinds of guys that the Niners could bring on that have decent histories of being healthy, but I don't know if cornerback is another position they'll address. They could address it in free agency. I think that if they bring on a guy, not only will it be a guy that will stay healthy, it'll also be a guy that has veteran experience, is a proven solid cornerback like a Casey Hayward, like an AJ Bouye minus the 2-game suspension, I think. DJ Hayden is good. Yeah, DJ Hayden is good. He's another solid cornerback that came from, just played with Jacksonville? I think he was with Pittsburgh for a little while, or the Raiders. I don't know. I don't know these guys' histories, but I will say that if the Niners do address cornerback, you guys, I think they'll be looking at it in free agency. I think they'll be looking for another veteran guy. Last point on cornerbacks before I wrap up the show. If they don't address veteran cornerbacks, I think they already have a couple on the roster like K1 and Verrett. It'll be tough to not justify, but I would say it'll be interesting to bring on another veteran cornerback. Having that secondary be a little on the older side is kind of risky because you're going to bank on the risk that not only can these guys stay healthy, but can they benefit from the pass rush? Jazzy, real quick, Hayden is a man-to-man corner. Yeah, he is. And that's the thing, too, is that I think with Robert Saleh gone, D'Amico Ryan stepping in, Jaquiski Tartt, or someone jokingly said, I think it was Tartt, that he could blitz more than 12 times in the game. When you factor in guys who are blitzing, I think you can safely factor in a lot of man-to-man concepts. I think the 49ers and that defense is shifting to a more man coverage focused defense. Jason Verrett locked down DeAndre Hopkins last season. He locked down a lot of the guys he played. Emmanuel Moseley isn't too bad at man. He's a pretty good zone corner, but he can play man pretty well. K1 is really good at man in the slot, in my opinion. He is just a very annoying slot corner, but K1 Williams is solid. He's a solid dude. But the point being is that I think the Niners are having a slight defensive scheme change. The wide nine is here to stay. I think with Chris Kocurek here, the wide nine is here to stay. But the defensive philosophies in the secondary, I think, are changing as well. I think we'll still see a lot of cover 3, but we'll also see a lot of man concepts as well. So, you guys, I think I'm going to wrap it up. I hit my 1 hour point. You guys have been awesome. It's been so much fun to talk 49ers football with you guys. In the show today, I covered free agency signings, the quarterback situation, touched on the offensive line a little bit, touched on wide receivers, touched on the defensive line, kind of littered you guys with all my draft thoughts. And that will be the show every Wednesday from 1:30 on. We'll be talking all things 49ers, all things draft, everything going on. It's a Wednesday show. You can see what I do in the background there. I have my controller set up. If I'm not talking football, I'm in school or I'm just doing video game stuff like a nerd. But the bottom line, though, is that I'm so glad I'm doing a Wednesday show with you guys. Alec, thank you so much. Jazzy, Tommy, no Sertani, no Farley. Hey, they will do anything at cornerback. But guys, it has been my absolute pleasure to be along with you guys for the ride so far. It has been an absolutely fun free agency period. The Niners haven't done anything big, but just to say that they're bringing back home bodies isn't just as important as well. I think you bring on those home guys. I think it tells me that they believe that they can go out there and run it one more time. It's a lot of one-year deals. It's a lot of one-year deals, but it's a lot to bank on. Jazzy, thank you, my man, or female. I don't know. I'm not assuming genders. I'm assuming everyone is awesome. Guys, follow me on Twitter at Anthony R.M. Perry, ANTHONY RMPERRY. I'm the guy with the really cool Rick and Morty profile picture. Got it down on Etsy. Absolutely love it. Next week, guys, same as always. I'll bring up all the points I want to talk about. We'll be addressing any more free agency signings. We'll be addressing any more free agency rumors. Hopefully, the Niners will get a backup quarterback. I like the Gardner Minshew rumors. I hope they go get him. If they don't, it's a wild ride. It's going to be a wild ride, you guys. But hey, later on tonight, before I officially close it out, my man Zach Hernandez and Matt Llewellyn are going to be coming at you with a live show in the evening, California time. They're going to be talking around 7 or 8 o'clock. I know a lot of the regulars will be there. Hopefully, a lot of you guys will be there as well. I'll definitely be tuned in. They'll be talking 7 to 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. They'll be talking about Jaquiski Tartt, K'Waun Williams, Zach Kerr. They'll be talking a lot of stuff I've been talking about, but there's going to be 2 voices this time, so no one to disagree with me. Luckily, I get to just vent my thoughts on the 49ers. But guys, that about wraps it up for me. Jazzy, Alec, everyone who joined on, thank you so much. I will be back on again next Wednesday from 1:30 p.m. to about 2:30 once again, talking all things Niners. Follow me on Twitter. Follow The Hive. Where are we? 49ers Hive on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Also follow them on Twitch, 49ers Hive as well. And as always, guys, thank you for listening to another episode of Perry's Points. Cannot wait to be talking 49ers next week. Find me on Twitter talking all things Niners as well. And I will see you guys back next Wednesday, 1:30 p.m. and on. Have a good day, you guys.